I was remiss in not introducing our guests, Dan Anderson, Press Goodwyn, and Bill Ranson. Dupont was probably, with the permacept separator, B9, was one of the earliest of the RO membrane manufacturers. How did the concept develop, and was it difficult? Perhaps you could describe some of the difficulties you had in actually coming up with the design of the permeator itself.
The initial R&D interest was in helium recovery. And one of the chemists there in Jackson Lab got the idea that a hollow fine fiber would be a good way to try and see if they could achieve a separation. So the focus was on gas separations initially. Mainly driven by the fact that the government was supporting the price of helium at a very attractive level. No sooner did the limited activity get underway than the government removed the price support and the price of helium plummeted, and the interest in helium separation went with it. And looking for other places to apply the technology, they started switching over to water desalting as an alternative.
The first commercial membrane was a B9. And then a few years later on, you commercialized the B10 seawater membrane?
True, yes.
And was that the same fiber, or was that a different fiber?
Chemically, I think it was the same fiber, but there were a number of things done to it to provide the pressure resistance that was required to achieve higher saltwater feeds and accomplish a separation.
Did the OD-ID ratio change, I would presume, to withstand the pressures?
Yeah, true. The structure changed to achieve greater fiber strength, wall strength, and what have you. That's true. Other than that, though, the basic structure, I believe, chemically was the same. There was some post-treatments that were added to achieve the high separation you needed to do the job. It was pretty successful.
First, decision has to be made how you're going to market. And the decision was made by the Dupont company, and I think it was the correct one, to work with existing water treatment companies that were well established, could do all of the things that DuPont had little experience in, to provide a system to satisfy the customer's needs. We provide the permeators as more or less one of the components of the system. So you mentioned permuted, polymetrics, others. So we decided to ally ourselves with established, competent system manufacturers. Marketing point one, don't count on your future sales from countries that are going to have a revolution.
The B10 was post-treated with PTA and PTB. Were you involved at all in discovering that those two chemicals worked to give you the kind of characteristics you wanted?
The PTA treatment was developed by the chemist in the laboratory, and the PDB treatment was discovered by one of the engineers who was looking at various chemicals there at the Glasgow site, a fellow by the name of Carl Chin. And the combination seemed to be very powerful as far as enhancing rejection that was required to achieve a seawater separation.
What are some of the significant systems that carried the Permacept's label on the membranes in those days?
Well, I guess the plant in Venezuela, Gaddafi, was one of our large seawater plants. The one that Jack Spencer, Yambu, was that the one in Saudi Arabia? The Key West plant. I'm trying to think of some others. I just can't recall them all. But
what was the largest plant?
One of our largest early plants was the one in Riyadh, capital of Saudi Arabia.
That was a B9 plant.
That was a B9
That was a
plant.
B9. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I didn't specify.
Yeah.
Biggest plant. Yeah. And that was what, 15 million gallons a day or something like that?
Well, 50. I mean, there was 12, 13.
It was big.
Total plants were in the 50s.
And you had a big plant also in Bahrain, I think.
And in Jubail, Saudi Arabia.
Right. Now, when the decision was made to close the doors, you had been working trying to get some licensees to actually make the permeators or assemble the permeators.
Assemble permeator. It wasn't.
Saudi Arabia.
Well, there were two partners. One was E.A. Jafali and Company, one of the largest companies over there involved in all sorts of things, including selling Mercedes-Benz cars and that stuff. And a minor partner was Adel Bushnak from El Kauthar. I think what happened is several projects got canceled, and so the resolve within Dupont to keep pouring money in sort of waned at that time.
And what the concept was that you would make the bundles here?
No,
the
we'd
bundles
ship
out
fiber. They would make
Just
bundles.
ship fiber?
We'd ship
Ah,
fiber.
okay.
They would convert them into bundles and put them in the permeator shells.
Were any of you at Permacep still when they entered the spiral membrane market?
It was really a marketing strategy to have a full line of products, which was pushed strongly by the business manager at the time, Bob Keller. And there was diversity of opinion among the Permacep management whether that was really the right thing to do. And it was difficult to justify that you could afford that investment with what kind of a market share you're going to get.
You did your own pilot testing in the field. Did the information you were able to gather allow you to improve the product over time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example. We did some brackish water testing right here in Salem, New Jersey. We had a well there that we tested, and I guess about every month or so we go and check to see how things were going. And one day we discovered that performance had dropped off very significantly. Took the module back to the plant, took it apart, and the whole thing was a solid rock. It was just like a concrete pillar. Analyzed what was in there, turned out to be barium sulfate.
That'll do it.
Well, just analyzed the water, we could hardly find any barium in it. It turned out to have like 1.5 parts per million barium in it. But over a period of time, operating it the way we were instructed to operate it, it had precipitated out and slowly accumulated in the module. So that led quite a bit of interest in controlling conversion in each module to avoid precipitation of all the components that were in the feed water. We have focused on the typical ones like calcium sulfate and what have you. But these trace element type things could come in and nip you too if you operated outside the boundary. So I think it enlarged our appreciation for how important it was to control conversion in each module. And that in turn got us into the area of staging to accomplish that. And so it was a helpful input from the field, I think, to focus our technical efforts into understanding better how to operate our modules in a successful fashion.
I'd like to add a little bit to what Press was saying about what we learned from the field testing. I think that changed our emphasis, so pre-treatment became a big part of what we studied in depth. And Lynn Applegate became the pre-treatment expert of the world, actually. And under Irv's guidance, we put together manuals that went into details of how to use the pre-treatment to insure against those sorts of things. So that became a part of the technology as opposed to just turning on the valve and letting the water squirt.
Yeah, one of the most exciting things to me was visiting places I never would have gone before and wouldn't go again right now, such as Iran.
The thing that I always felt that set Permacep apart, and even though I wasn't really involved in the technology, more financial planning stuff, was, we sell plastic, same old stuff, big deal. Fibers, they weave rugs. This is a hollow fiber with an OD/ID ratio of a heavy wall vessel. Separates seawater. I mean, just to be able to do that was incredible to me.
There was a little story about one of the early membranes that we created. The very first large brackish water installation occurred at Plains, Texas. And it was a barrier that we later on abandoned for better performance membranes. And the story, I didn't go down there, but the story goes that this is a fairly significant plant. It had like, I think 12 rather large modules in it. Most small towns in Texas have very brackish water. I don't even know how they exist down there, but 2,000 or 3,000 part per million feed water is very common there. In any event, to offset that, they throw a lot of soap in their wash water and what have you. And so does the laundromats and what have you in town. And Plains wasn't a very big town. So one day, though, the papers announced that the plant was going to start up and provide much better quality water. And so they turned the plant on, and it was a significant hunk of the water supply for Plains, Texas. It was maybe 3/4 of it. And out comes this very low TDS water, and it hit all these laundromats, and suds began to occur, and it overflowed all the washing machines, and the floor was covered with suds, and they started calling up the mayor saying, "Mayor, we can't handle this anymore. We're out of our mind here with all these soap suds. What's going on here?" And he explained to them what had happened. "We've now improved your water quality. You got to cut back on the soap and the softener that you're putting in there and what have you. Things are changing." And they said, "Well, I guess that's for the better." And they did so, but after a massive cleanup effort at all these laundromats that were suffering.